Okay, we're inside Portal 2 and ready to make our own test chambers. So to do that, let's go to Community Test Chambers, Create Test Chambers, and here we are, a blank, brand new test chamber. If I bring my mouse over to the left-hand part of the screen, you'll see that some things pop up for us to use. But before we even get there, let's talk about the room itself and how we change how big the room is. I can click on tiles with my left mouse button, or I can click and drag to select multiple. When I have tiles selected, I can use the plus and minus keys on my keyboard to bring these tiles either forward or backward. And by doing this, I can have all kinds of interesting shapes. In order to get a better view of my test chamber, I need to rotate around. To do that, I'm going to click the middle mouse button, the middle mouse wheel, and move the mouse. This allows me to move around in 3D space. I can also use the W, A, S, and D keys to move up and down, in and out. The mouse wheel, of course, will also zoom in and out. So by selecting different tiles, I can create pits. In order to select them, though, I need to be able to see them. So to select the ceiling, I would need to make sure I was rotated down, and I can bring it up. I could even create whole new rooms. I could select these right here, move them way over like that. Then I could, whoops, I didn't mean to do that, so I'm going to press Control Z a few times to undo my last action. And I'm going to go ahead and continue to make a new room by selecting and I probably shouldn't forget the ceiling, because if the ceiling is that low, the room is going to feel very, very confining, kind of claustrophobic. Oops, once again, Control Z, made a couple mistakes. I can make the ceiling as big as I wanted. So now I went from that simple test chamber that we started with to 2 rooms, pits, all kinds of things. So take a few minutes and play with that using the plus and minus keys. Don't forget that the middle mouse button will rotate you around in space. There's one more thing about the shape of the walls that I want to mention here before we move on. And that's if you played enough Portal, you realize that certain surfaces can have portals on them and certain ones can't. And the difference is whether or not they're dark or light. The light surfaces can have portals on them, the dark surfaces cannot. And that will be very important when we're trying to make difficult, interesting puzzles for people to play through. And to change it's very simple. I'm going to select some tiles, and I can either right-click and click on Portalable, or I could just use the shortcut P key. So if I select some tiles and press P, they go back and forth. Now any tile that's dark, you could not shoot a portal onto. So back inside our test chamber, one thing that's really cool is we can actually jump into the view of the player as though we were actually playing the test to see how it is, see how it's looking. But there are 2 steps to make that happen. I'm going to go to File, and I'm either going to press Rebuild or I'll press F9, which is my shortcut key. You have to do this. This is so Portal will actually take your test chamber and sort of create it. If you don't do that, the new things, anything that you've done recently won't be there. So it takes a few seconds. And here we are, inside the test chamber that we actually created. There's the pit. There's the exit, which I can just walk right to now. Here's that second room that we created that has all of the unportalable walls. So yeah, so as you're constructing, it's always a good idea to take a minute and step in and make sure that it actually works the way you want it to, and that there aren't any glitches or things that you don't intend. You can press Tab and go right back to the editor. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and leave this first test chamber behind. I'm going to make a new one. I'm going to go to File, New Chamber. Here we're back to the start. going to start talking about some of these things that we have on the side here and how to use them. So before I do that, let's just go ahead and make this room a little bit bigger. Okay, so on the side here, you're going to recognize a lot, if not all of these things from playing Portal yourself. So the things that we use probably most often are the buttons up here, the cubes, these right here, that's the sort of holographic walkway. These are stairs that can lift up. This is our laser. This is the laser catcher, so we can have a door open if the laser gets into the laser catcher. We have some of the robots. We have some of the acid that we can put inside of our pits. These are actually just lights to make the room brighter. So it's really simple as dragging and dropping. So if I want to put a button in the room, I'm just going to click and drag, and I'll put that right there. Now, right now it's not really doing anything. It's just there. So if I right-click on it, I'm going to get some options. So for a button and for some other things, the idea of connecting it to something makes the most sense. So I can connect to things like a door. So you'll see as I hover over the door, it turns blue. Okay. Now that door's not going to open until that button is pressed. But don't take my word for it. Let's try it. Let's go to File, Rebuild. Here we are inside our brand new room. We have our door. And we have our button. Open, closed, open, closed. So right now this puzzle cannot be completed. There is no way for me to complete it because there's nothing for me to put on that button to keep it open. So I'm going to press Tab and go back into editor mode. So if I wanted this to work, I would need to have a companion cube, right? So let's do that. Let's grab a weighted cube, and when you bring it in here, it actually creates the little launcher that drops the cube for you. So let's put it right here. Now if I right click on it, it has some options too. I could connect it to something, or I could decide what kind of cube I want it to drop, either a standard cube, the spherical cubes, the companion cubes. But these are actually pretty important. Auto drop the first cube. Do I want it to automatically drop a cube when you start the level or not? Right now it will. And do you want it to automatically respawn a cube? So if something happens to the cube, it gets destroyed, maybe you drop it in some acid, will it come back automatically? Right now it will. So let's try this. I'm going to grab a button to push. I'm going to right click on it. I'm going to connect it to the cube dropper, but I want to make sure that the cube dropper doesn't drop the cube right away, only when you press the button. So I'm going to tell it to not auto drop the first cube. I don't want it to drop one automatically. Okay, so let's go up to File and do Rebuild. It's been updated. Okay, the cube did not drop because I had unchecked the box, but I can follow these guidelines, these connection lines, to see that this button will work that. So I'm going to come up here and press E, and I get a cube that I can put on the button, and now I can exit the level. Okay, one more time. I started a brand new test chamber, and this time we're going to work through making an entire test chamber ourselves. So, since I'm going to keep this one for sure, a very smart person would go ahead and save it immediately. So I'm going to go to File, Save As. I'm going to say Mr. Eames's first chamber. You can go to description if you want, and save. I would do that regularly. Just come up here, and you'll see once you've saved it the first time, as save as, you can just press Control S. And I would do that constantly, so if something happens to the game, you don't lose your work. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and make the room a little bit bigger like before. Not too big, though. Now, most of these puzzles work the same way. You start from the entrance, you're trying to get to the exit. So we can think of ways to make this more interesting. I can raise the exit or move it some other place. I can make it harder for a person to get there. So let's go ahead and raise that up. And let's make sure that people can't just use a portal right away to get up there. So let's go ahead and raise maybe these three. Okay, so already I can't get there. There's no way for me to get from there to there right now. And we'll find some interesting way to make that happen. Let's go ahead and also let's make a nice pit that you can't jump across. And because we're kind of evil right now, let's go ahead and fill it with acid. So we'll grab the acid, and you'll see you can either fill the whole room with it, which would be a bad idea, or you can just put it in the little pit that we created. So now we have to find some way for the player to get across. We have to find some way for the player to get up there. Okay, so one way for the player to get up there would be to have these steps. And we would need to have at least 2 sets of them to get the player all the way up there. Let's see if I can make this work. Let's see. Oops. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to lower these by 1, move this down. Okay, so we'll have those steps, but those steps, see how they have the robotic pieces underneath? When we first get inside the room, they're going to be down. They'd be lifted up by something. So let's have them lifted up by having one of these. But don't forget, you have to connect this to the steps itself. So let's go ahead and press Control S to save. Saving test chamber. Okay, let's go ahead and do rebuild, F9. Okay, so here we are in our test chamber. You can see that we can't get across right now. Actually, we can't get across because I can just make a portal. Okay, so we're across the pit. And like I said, those stairs are down. And to lift them, we would need to have one of those spherical companion cubes. Okay, so right now I can't actually I can get up there right now. I can just, well, maybe I can. I wonder if I jump I can make it. These are things that you need to do when you are testing out to make sure that it's not too easy. Ah, I can get over there just by making a couple of portals. So I need to make sure that that's not possible when I get back to the editor. So I'm going to press Tab. And I need to make sure that over here, you can't portal over there either. Okay, because that might be a problem. Let's go ahead and do all of these. That's so that you can't portal there. So we decided that we need to have a spherical companion cube right there. So somehow I need to have that happen. So let's grab a spherical companion cube. Let's have it drop over here. Let's make it so it doesn't drop right away. You have to press something, and let's have it be that. Let's see, what can we do? I'm going to have this laser. No, let's not do lasers right now. Let's tie that to a button. Let's put a button up here. And let's connect that to that. Now, let's rebuild. I am going to go press the button. Oops. That drops the spherical cube. Let's put a... So now I can grab the cube. Well, first I will put a portal right there, right there. I can go grab my cube, drop it in, the stairs lift. There we go. I'm going to call that a success. We have several different things that have to happen for the player to actually reach the exit. And there's no way for the player to skip those steps and jump right to the exit by using portals. So that's what you're trying to do here. You're trying to create impediments to the player to get where they need to go and make it so they can't cheat and go straight to the end. Here is a level that I've created in the Puzzle Maker, and I'm quite proud of it. You can see there's a lot going on here. I have all kinds of things that I've added. I have some definite obstacles for the player. I've got a lake of acid here. I've got some turrets that will kill you if you go to the wrong place at the wrong time. I've used buttons, cubes, lasers, tractor beams, you name it. All kinds of fun stuff. So let's jump in and see what it actually looks like. Okay, so here's the very beginning. See, I've created this laser field. You can't touch that or you die, so you have to find a way around that. You can't jump over the acid, so you got to make sure that you are using your portals. That's the first step. Using your portals to escape. And since I already know how it works, I'm going to go ahead and just show you. I've got up here, you've got a button. That releases the cube, or the sphere over there. I'm also going to grab the reflective cube. We're going to take this over here. Okay. That turned on this angled plate. Let me grab the cube. I'm going to need the sphere here in a second. Before that, though, I'm going to use this angled plate to get up there, and this might look familiar. Okay, so let's grab our sphere. Going to fall through. Shoot up here. We can put the sphere in there, which turns on the tractor beam. Now I'm going to use that portal again to get behind the lasers, and I can use this faith plate that shoots me up into the tractor beam, which takes me to the end. So at this point you might be wondering what we're actually going to do with our chamber, and the answer is we're going to create a PowerPoint. So I have opened up PowerPoint, and I've created a PowerPoint presentation, which you'll use as your model. You'll be able to find it in the tutorial videos folder like you found the original video. And what I did is first thing I did is I went and found the design I liked. I can click on Design tab at the top, and this little down arrow here will show me all the designs I have available to me. I thought this sort of ominous black one made sense for my Insidious Portal 2 test chamber. You see I have several slides. I have a slide that just shows a picture of the test chamber. I use the snipping tool to take that picture, as you did several times already. The next slide is a list of the assets I use. So in the Puzzle Creator on the left-hand side, these are all the things that I actually placed inside my level at some point. And you see how many I actually ended up using in the end. And then the rest of the PowerPoint is just a walkthrough of how to pass through the level and get to the end. It might look like a lot of work, but it's really not, because all I had to do was take a single snapshot of the level here, and then I just copied it several times. In fact, all of these slides at the end, all the way from 4 down to 9, are just duplicates of each other. So I would make a slide, like number 4, then I would right-click and duplicate it to make 5, and then 5 I would just sort of change the words and the boxes here. So let's figure out how we actually do this. So I'm going to make a new slide. Up at File, or I'm sorry, Home, New Slide. I'm going to go to Layout, because I don't want to have these two contents here. I just want to have actually all I need is a title. And we called it Solving the Puzzle. I'm just going to copy my picture from here. So Control C, Control V. There's a picture of my chamber. I'm going to insert a new shape. And the shapes I'm going to use are called callouts. So I'm going to grab this one down here. I'm going to draw it. But I think that's kind of hard to see. So in order to make it easier to see, I'm going to double click on it. And it brings up all these options here. The first thing I'm going to do is find a color that stands out a little bit better. And I thought these sort of brighter colors were easier to see. So I'm going to choose that. Then I'm going to go to Shape Outline. I'm going to go to Weight. I'm going to make the weight a lot thicker. And you'll see now it's easier to see. Now the way this works is I can move the whole thing around like this. But then I can also take the tail here and actually point it at the piece that I want to talk about. So right here. And then I'm going to come up here to the text box button. I'm going to turn this whole thing into a text box. And now I can type inside of it. And I can say something like, player must press pedestal button to get sphere. And that's great. If I wanted to make my next slide, all I would do, once again, is right-click on this slide and say Duplicate. Now I have two of them. I can come down to my 11th one, and I can change this. So now I can have it pointing somewhere else. I can change the words. Sphere drops from this. And that's all I did for these slides at the end. It was really simple. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of those. So you're going to model your PowerPoint on mine. So you're going to start off with a title slide that looks like mine, a picture of the overall, the assets that you used, and then you're going to start creating these slides that walk the player step by step. For everything that you've added, you need to have a slide that explains it and have it pointing at the right assets.